Hey everyone, Chris Stegall from MK Partners here, and I am joined today by Jessie Penaloza. Hey Jessie, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Pretty well. Exciting stuff headed to orgs. That also makes it the perfect time for us to be running through our Winter 24 release highlights, the posts where we read through the release notes, make note of the features, updates, and upgrades that stand out to us the most as improvements for orgs, time savers for admins and devs, and generally just, give us something to look forward to with each release. So these are, as always, on the blog at medium.com/creme de la CRM, as well as here on YouTube. So be sure to like and subscribe to both places. I will throw links in the description to the blog posts. But I think I sort of took a look at some of the IdeaExchange winners. Jessie took a look at some of the updates coming to Marketing Cloud account engagement, aka Pardot, aka everybody's favorite email marketing tool. So let's start there. Jessie, why don't you tell us what you're excited about in terms of account engagement in Winter 24?
Thank you, Chris. And thanks, everybody. Um, so, one of the things that I want to just quickly highlight is the release weekends kind of stretched out. And I think Chris nailed it there, put that nail in the coffin there, where there was a little bit more of a stretch. As a newer Trailblazer coming here, I noticed that most of these release weekends kind of ran on a 3 week period. So, they were pretty consistent. It was like one, two, three. But it looks like this one kind of stretched up to almost 6 weeks. And primarily, I'm pretty sure it has to do a little bit with Salesforce. Dream big event coming out, which is Dreamforce, which is in a couple of weeks. So I guess everything kind of fell around that time frame. So they're allowing people, because there's so much information going out, allowing more people to kind of give them more time to get everything out, make sure everybody gets settled correctly. I could be wrong, but that's one of my guesses here, because this is a longer period. So those orgs that don't actually get the update pushed immediately will have to wait a bit. So it's a double-edged sword, because it could benefit you if you don't want to have those changes hit your orgs immediately. But then for others that are like, okay, I want to get this update because it can benefit me, they're going to have to kind of wait a little bit until that gets pushed out. But
Yeah, and I
without
think you're right. I think it has to do probably with it. It kind of feels like Dreamforce gets earlier and earlier every year now. Um, and it seems to me like, yeah, they probably want to show off the cool new stuff that they've been working on at Dreamforce. So they were like, we better get that first release weekend ahead of time so we can show off some of the cool stuff at Dreamforce. And it's not like we do the biggest event of the year and then a week later we're like, oh, and here's some cool new features we wish we could have showed you.
All right. Well, on the Marketing Cloud account engagement side, one of the first things that kind of stood out was the limiting the iframe assets. So I guess it's something that I'm a little bit more familiar with in terms of understanding more relevant. It kind of makes more sense whenever we want to embed some sort, for example, a social post or a video or some sort of mention somewhere where you're going to want to capture it the same way it would appear on the original location. You would use like an iframe that allows you to embed the code within your own actual page. And the account engagement side of things, it would be like a form or a landing page that you want to include there. So you would use this small tag and be able to include to another page. Well, it looks like they're actually allowing you to create a domain control restriction, which now lets you decide only certain domains authorized are going to be able to use your assets to embed them into their pages. There's a couple of reasons, that this could be going on. After doing a little bit more research, I found out that some of the security risks at hand, just by allowing anybody to use any of your uh, assets in iframe, consist of probably changing the destination of the URL, which might kind of trigger some sort of phishing attack or some sort of concern in terms of, oh, where is this asset actually being hosted, or where is it coming from, to potentially even installing malware when that asset is actually activated, to even actually taking some of that information that gets passed through, for example, that form or landing page. Some of these called XSS attacks or cross-site scripting is one of the more common. security risk when it comes to using iframes. So allowing you to actually define which domains can authorize and use your assets is actually another layer of security. So even if somebody wanted to embed it into their landing page, if that domain is not registered within your actual asset restrictions, then it will not actually fire and trigger and actually load up the asset that you actually had set up. So it's a cool little feature. And actually, I started doing more research into it, realized that, oh, okay, I didn't know you can just literally take anybody's code, I guess, in some sense, and actually just embed it into your landing page. It makes a lot of sense, but I guess it's also there's a lot of security breach and a lot of security concerns at hand. So it's nice for Salesforce to be able to do this, especially from the account engagement side, which you're putting up a lot of landing pages, a lot of forms. So you don't want to parse that information that gets submitted and have to have somebody worry about it later down the road. Oh, who else gets a chance to get my information of some sorts?
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting too, because like when I haven't looked into this yet, so thank you, one, for flagging this and doing a little write up on it. Um, because yeah, so my initial reaction when I read that is that it would be sort of like related to business units, where it's like if I have a landing page and then let's say I'm invoking a form as an iframe. So I have one form that I use on lots of landing pages for my, in our case, let's say Mambo Merge uses a form to register people for demos, interested in being contacted, etc. Um, then, if I was doing something as MK Partners and I wanted to invoke a form, um, this would stop me from being like, oh, let me put that Mambo Merge form on mkpartners.com by accident,
Right.
because it would say, oh, hey, you tried to grab this iframed asset and it's, the wrong domain. Um, but it's really interesting if it works externally too, where, I have this landing page or this form and it's saying, oh, if somebody else externally wants to iframe that and pass off their website as mine, that Pardot, or sorry, account engagement would have tools to prevent that. So, yeah, that seems like it would also sort of help prevent phishing attempts where someone tries to like pass your content off as their own to harvest client data or things like that. So, I will definitely be looking into this, and thank you for flagging that, Jesse.
Of course, no problem. And then the second update that caught our attention is something we're working on more recently with some of our partners and some of the projects that have been going on is related to account engagement studio programs. So typically, when you had to do any type of send emails, you had to set up some wait times, right? So trigger at some point, and the trigger would actually have to consist of days. You have to actually wait an entire day to actually be able to send something off after something actually uh, signed off or checked off and say, okay, after you receive something and you passed a prospect through a studio program, then wait X amount of days, one being the shortest. Well, now it looks like there's a lot of people. I'm pretty sure this was thrown somewhere in the IdeaExchange, or a lot of people had to be talking about being able to figure out how to do this on an hourly basis. And it looks like, those voices were heard. And now we actually have an option to actually set an hour's time frame in intervals of 2 to 8 hours. So now when you actually want to set up a send email, once that action is triggered, then you can, and the wait is set, you can actually wait X amount of hours, and then your email will actually be sent off. That way you can actually start the program and actually have that real-time interaction and send that information immediately instead of having to wait entirely up to 24 hours the next business day, making it more of a personalized experience versus having to wait an entire day to actually be able to send some of those emails. So obviously, it's a double-edged sword where obviously you don't want to be sending out too many emails too quickly, right? But you do want to be able to trigger some experiences if the users are engaging to your content. In a relevant time manner, especially when people are looking to gather some of the information. For example, like gated content, if you send some information, you'll be able to send that back to them or if they meet certain criteria. Being able to respond, and putting them through these engagement programs will be a lot easier instead of having to create alternative methods to be able to send those emails within that same business day.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, that's cool. Just like again, like the immediate use cases that jump to mind, I have noticed an uptick in salespeople and marketers doing the like forgotten bit of information routine, which is something that like we have not tried yet because to me it feels a little disingenuous. But I have gotten a few emails to the point that I'm like, oh, this is a new tactic where you get an email from the rep and it says like, oh, here's a link to blah 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 whatever, and then you get an email like an hour later that's like, oh, sorry, looks like I forgot to include that link, here's that link, or oh, sorry, I forgot to include that attachment, and it kind of like humanizes the process a little bit and makes it not feel like an engagement studio campaign or a sequence out of another app. um, and so this definitely feels like, oh, that would enable that. I could set up my little engagement studio sequence to say, hey, here's my information. Great meeting you at that event. And then an hour later, like wait 1 hour and then send, oh, look, I forgot to include a link to our website. Here it is. Let me know if you have any questions. Um, and I can also see a use case for, let's say, Mambo Merge on an install, wait 2 hours and then evaluate, have they done their first merge? And we'll use that as a branch to say, like, oh, if you're liking it, consider leaving us a review. Or if it's been 2 hours and you haven't done a first merge, here's some links to support articles. So those kind of things where it's like we wouldn't want to wait a day and lose that momentum.
Right.
We
Hmm.
want to get them while they're engaged. So very cool. And probably only a matter of like 5 more years before we get minutes and then
Right.
seconds.
Right. Yeah, we're slowly going down that funnel.
Yeah.
You'd figure it
Wait
would be
3
very.
seconds and then message them again. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, so I'll definitely have to dive into these. And that was the last one here for account engagement. Is that right?
Yeah, there weren't too many this time around, and I want to just handpick a couple of them that stood out relevant and provided a more meaningful, uh, uh, at least, understanding of what should be what things you should be looking out for,
Yeah.
versus kind of itemizing every single one. I know there's some API stuff that's been in the works, but that tends to be more, if you are using some of that in the back end stuff, but want to kind of keep things simple and streamline things this time around. But if you have any suggestions, always feel free to drop them in the comments below, and we'll be more than happy to do some more research and digging.
Yes, please do. And with that, I think I'll shift over to what caught my eye in terms of IdeaExchange winners. Um, For those of you that aren't familiar with the IdeaExchange, that is where you can go on Salesforce and upvote the features that people have suggested from the Salesforce ecosystem. You're doing something in Salesforce and you're like, wow, I really ought to be able to do X, Y, and Z. If that doesn't exist, you go to ideas.salesforce.com, and I'll throw that in the description too. And I'll try to open it now, but it's going to take so long because computer is slow and it will likely make me behave really slowly. But the good news is I can cut all of this out and just include the part where I say I'm going to open it up and it will be fine. I'm just pausing so that because I'm going to cut this out anyway.
That's the beauty about having the.
Yeah. All right. So the IdeaExchange is, of course, the website where you can pop in, um, check out ideas that other folks have suggested, suggest ideas of your own, and see what is open, what has been delivered already in previous releases. And you can upvote and downvote. I'm not sure you can downvote. But you can upvote the ideas that are interesting to you. So let's say we popped over into marketing, add additional email fields on Marketing Cloud contact record. So this person wants the ability to say, hey, I know Chris has a work email address that's, I'm not going to say it out loud on this YouTube video, and a personal email address of Definitely not going to say that one out loud on this YouTube video. But I want to be able to put both of those on a record and then be able to react accordingly. So this is one where it's like, oh, do I think that's a good idea? If so, I can upvote it. And it looks like I can downvote. So yeah, you have some say in the Salesforce ecosystem. Do they ever actually get made? You might be wondering. The answer is, of course, yes. And with Winter 24, we're getting a couple that are going to be big deals for admins. So these are both kind of related to permissions and permission sets, which, you know, I am definitely a marketer and I would say more of like an amateur admin. I'm a certified Pardot administrator, but when it comes to the CRM side of Salesforce, uh, I think I'm more familiar than, a regular person on the street because I have my trailhead org and my dev orgs. But the folks that do the work day in and day out can admin me under the table. And one of the parts I really struggle with is permissions and permission sets. I feel like there's 4 or 5 screens that have check boxes for different things, and I'm always missing one. And so we're getting some improvements here. First of all, we're going to get the ability to see what's in a permission set more clearly. So now we're going to be able to see, here's my permission set. It's the permission set for create, view, and edit cases. And we're getting this extra little bit down here that has object permissions, user permissions, and nice like rows and checkboxes to see exactly what's included in the set as a whole. So no more like clicking the permission set and then clicking the user and then clicking over here and trying to like remember what's attached to what. So that will be a time saver.
So with this one, one thing that caught my attention was, um, would this allow you to make changes to those permissions you're looking at within this screen, or is this more just an understanding and overview of what's available, permission sets are set up accordingly to that layout?
That is a good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. I have not checked yet in the sandbox. In my head, um, because I think, yeah, so permission sets are like a collection of permissions with a given title.
Hmm.
And then permission set groups are collections of those permission sets. And I think that's one of the things that like I have struggled with historically. Um, so it's sort of where I get hung up. And so this screen should be a look at a permission set. And that's why it's saying like, oh, this permission set is invoked in one permission set group. And here it is. And here are the individual permissions that make up this permission set. And so theoretically, because we're on the permission set, we should be able to adjust the permissions from here. I just don't know if it's on this screen or if this is the screen that's going to like kind of precede that, and there's going to be an edit button in the corner where I would then click edit and it will take me to a new screen where I can adjust these.
Gotcha.
So that I have not played with yet, but I kind of suspect that it'll be like that you can get to the edit from this screen, but it's not like it's going to be in line here. Where if like I wanted to add the ability to create accounts
Right.
to this permission, like it looks like I would kind of expect there to be an edit button within
Hmm.
this box if I could do that. So I think it'll be like less inline
Hmm.
editing and more like the edit exists over here on the top right, and then it'll open like the standard which permissions do you want to add to this permission set screen.
Makes sense. Agree.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I get caught up because you've got permissions, permission sets, and then permission set groups, and they're all kind of like a bigger collection of each other. And so next up, to make people like me that struggle with that be able to see the vision a little more clearly, is the ability to report on custom permission set and permission set group assignments. And so that is going to let you, run a report that says, hey, show me this permission set, show me all of the users that are assigned that permission set, or all of the users that are assigned that permission set group. Because right now, and this is something that we deal with in Pardot implementations, is like, okay, I need to make sure that somebody who's going to use Pardot as an admin has the marketing user box checked, that they have the Pardot Lightning app permission, that they have there's like quite a few different little permission check boxes that need to be checked or permission sets. Um, and currently, the only real way to do that is to like go into the users. Oh, I know Jesse needs to be an admin, so let me go to Jesse. Let me check this box. Let me make sure he has this permission set and this one. Okay, now I need to go to Emily. Let me make sure she has this, this, and this. Um, and now I'll be able to just go to my report on the necessary permissions and be like, oh, Jesse's missing. Oh, Emily's missing. Oh, Robert's missing. Get everybody done. And then when I have those like, hey, how come I don't see the screen that I expected to see emails from a client? I'll be able to just take a look at the report and be like, oh, here's the permission set that you're missing. Here's the permission that you're missing. So again, should be a huge time saver for admins again. And yeah, the ability to review an individual user's assignments, like let me have a report that shows all of my permissions, all of Jesse's permissions, instead of having to like click all the way through to the setup screen and the user and then permissions and then manage assignments. So, just a big time saver and a click saver. And I feel like I can hear admins breathing a sigh of relief having their upvoted ideas make it to the top.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those like everyone's been screaming for such a long time, and they can finally stop screaming and be like, okay, now let me learn how to use it to make sure it's giving me the information I really need. So let's
Yeah.
hope we can get some admins to give us a heads up and let us know, is it actually providing you the information you need now that there's a report available?
Yep. And as I mentioned, our release highlights posts are all gathered on, let me zoom out a hair here, Salesforce, or sorry, medium.com/creme de la CRM. That is the blog here. And if you click on release highlights at the top, you'll be taken to all of our release highlights posts. So this is where you'll find the latest news on Winter 24 or whatever the next upcoming Salesforce release is. So do check that out. And as Jesse mentioned earlier, if you have noticed any features in the release notes that you're excited about that you would like us to do a deeper dive into, if you want us to test them in our sandbox orgs, or if you just want it's seemed like something like that sounds interesting, but I don't know if it's actually useful, let us know in the comments. Let us know either here on the video or there on the blog, because we'll be happy to, take through the paces, do a little write up, and let you know what to expect when it comes to orgs everywhere. But until next time, thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And Jesse, thank you so much for both reading through the account engagement notes and joining me here on the video today.
Of course, happy to help and always happy to join these.
Cool. Well, we will continue our Winter 24 countdown. So stay tuned, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.